On behalf of the Idaho Conservation Officers Association, our steering committee, and the great state of Idaho, I want to welcome all you to the 2013 North American Wildlife Enforcement Officers Association Family Rendezvous. And we are indeed a family, although we sometimes wear different colored shirts and uniforms, and some of us speak a little weirder than others. We do share common foundations and common passion and a commitment to our wildlife and natural resources. As I sat the last couple days and watched as y'all gathered to our reunion, I noticed that you renewed old friendships, you started new ones, and our older officers were eager to pass down those family traditions to our eager younger brothers and sisters. They were eager to learn from us. It is my desire that you find Idaho, my home, an adventurous and exciting place to stick around after the conference, and I hope that during the conference you will find it enjoyable. We have lots of activities for you to participate. The last couple of days were just a taste of them, and we have much more for you during this week. At this time, if you would please silence your cell phones or turn them off. And I would ask you to rise as Idaho Fish and Game Honor Guard presents the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We have many special guests today. Specifically, I want to honor the families of the fallen officers that we will honor later this morning. And to start out with, one of our special guests this morning, I'd like to introduce Governor of the great state of Idaho, C.L. Butch Otter, who the people of Idaho re-elected for a second term in 2010. He was first elected Idaho governor in 2006. Previously to that, he served in Congress, representing our 1st District. He's the father of 4, grandfather of 6, married to the former Lori Easley of Kimberly, where they live in their ranch just down the street a little ways in Star. He's a native of Idaho. Governor Otter received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from the College of Idaho in 1967. He served honorably in the Idaho Army National Guard's 116th Armored Cavalry. When he was elected to Congress, Governor Otter was serving his 4th term as Lieutenant Governor. He previously represented the people of Canyon County in the Idaho House of Representatives for 2 terms. Governor Otter is a member of the National Rifle Association and one of my favorites, the Idaho Cowboys Association. He is a Grand Slam member of Ducks Unlimited, a lifetime member of the Safari Club International, and was elected to the National Cowboy Hall of Fame Board of Directors in Oklahoma City. And he's also a lifetime member of the American Legion Post 113 at Meridian. Please join me in welcome the Governor of the great state of Idaho, C.L. Butch Otter.
Well, thank you for that very generous and long introduction. I could have listened to that all morning. In fact, for a little bit, I thought I was going to have to. That was very kind of you, and I certainly appreciate it. Getting to know Idaho, and welcome to Idaho. Welcome to Idaho for all of you. Idaho is the home of some of the greatest wildlife resources in the world. As conservation officers, and by the way, I've never met quite this many conservation officers without being in trouble. I've hunted and fished all my life. I think I can't remember when I bought my first hunting license, but I can't remember ever going a year without having a hunting and fishing license and enjoying that great resource. And in Idaho, we do have a great resource with over 500 species, but there's 112 of them that we actually hunt and fish. And in Idaho, that's part of our problem, and I hope, or a problem that we've got to come up with a solution. Because in Idaho, as maybe in many of your jurisdictions, it is the hunters and the fishermen that actually support. We are a dedicated agency. So if they don't buy hunting and fishing licenses, the agency doesn't have the necessary revenue. Certainly we get some federal funds that are shared, but we are in a constant effort to find additional resources so that we can, as we are charged with, protect all 545 species, as well as provide hunting and fishing recreation and tradition for the 113 species that we do hunt and fish. Now, it's been 30 years since the North American Wildlife Enforcement Association last met in Idaho. And I'm proud to have you back, and I'm proud also of the fact that there were Idaho conservation officers involved in that small cadre of leadership and vision that said, you know, we're in this thing together. We've got connecting borders, we've got connecting habitat, And so therefore, we have to work together. In fact, I was reminded of that just 2 weeks ago when the Western Governors Association met. And I had the great honor and privilege of being the chairman of that a couple of years ago. And we've made it a habit out of always making sure that at least the 4 western provinces of our Canadian partners are always invited to the Western Governors Association, because we share not only some of the same problems, but some of the same opportunities. And as we go through the problematic, trying to find the solutions that we know are necessary with the Endangered Species Act, and with the constant pressure that we have with growth on our habitat and on our ability to provide that resource so that those folks will continue to buy and enjoy hunting and fishing. And not only that, but pass that from generation to generation. And so I'm especially appreciative of the fact that from that small cadre of 16 folks, you've grown to over 8,000 strong. 8,000 people that are working for the betterment of our resources and conserving those resources and making sure that they're provided. A survey tells us that in Idaho, and I'm sure it's not unusual for any other jurisdiction, that Idahoans care, 90% of Idahoans care about the wildlife in the state. We not only welcome you to our state, but we appreciate that all that you do for this most precious natural resource, not only here in Idaho, but throughout North America. Idaho conservation officers enforce our wildlife laws, yes, and they are sworn also as peace officers in Idaho. So they are also called from time to time to support local law enforcement and state law enforcement in the execution of their missions to maintain the peace and safety of our citizens. And it's especially appreciated in the rural parts of our state because we are a very rural state. Our 112 conservation officers patrol an average of 1,000 square miles. That takes them away from their home and their families at important times, because those who would not obey the law aren't necessarily going to do that only from Monday through Friday when there's not holidays. They're going to do that at any time. So we as Idahoans, and I as the governor of the great state of Idaho, appreciate the actions of all conservation officers in what they do for the safety and health of our citizens, but also for the conservation of our resources. So once again, I hope you find the habitat here for solution and problem solving. I hope you will bring together the full force of your 8,000 members to study and balance a very difficult opportunity that we have in this country and with these resources. And the balance that I'm talking about is, I say again, I'm not aware of the jurisdictions that all of you come from, but in Idaho we are focused on those habitats. We are focused on those conservation needs for the entirety of our wildlife, our fish and wildlife in the state. But once again, we are limited so far to the resources that's provided only by the hunter and the fisherman that goes in and buys the hunting and fishing tag. And it's necessary for us in a broad sense, I believe. And we've talked about this in the Western Governors Association, which I should also tell you represents not only the 4 western provinces of Canada, but also 19 western states. And as we come to grips with some of our problems with the Endangered Species Act, and we worked on one now that affects 11 states, and I think you've probably heard of the sage grouse and the sage grouse habitat that stretches across 11 western states and some of the provinces of Canada, but also includes 43 million acres of conservation that we have to come up with a solution in order to keep these species from being listed on the Endangered Species Act. And I know with 8,000 strong that we can do that. We can come up with those answers. We will come up with those answers. Let it begin here. Let it begin now. God bless you and have a great meeting.
Our next guest is our director, Virgil Moore. Virgil was appointed director by our Fish and Game Commission in March of 2011. He has over 36 years in a career of managing fish and wildlife, mostly here in Idaho. After a successful career in Idaho, he became director of the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. Wanted to return to his family and the state that he loves. He came back, and we welcomed him as our deputy director of operations. Previously, he served as bureau chief of our Fisheries Bureau and our Bureau of Communications or Information Education. I first knew Virgil when he held management positions in our Fisheries Bureau, where we debated the relevance of barbed hook compliance and enforcement. Virgil holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Biology and Education from Northwest Missouri State University and a Master's in Zoology from Idaho State University. So please welcome and joining me in welcoming Director Virgil Moore.
It's nice to be here today. I'm glad I can feel the air conditioning coming on with all the hot air John's been spewing, introducing us. We need it. So, welcome to Idaho, where wildlife matters. Idahoans love their fish and wildlife in this state. 91% of Idahoans say wildlife is an important reason why they live in this state. We had 75% of Idahoans in the last 2 years participate in outdoor-based wildlife recreation. We had 53% of people in this state fish in the last 2 years. 35% of them hunted. 2/3 of adult Idahoans held a hunting and fishing license in the last 5 years. It's a hugely involved population in this state. We are an agency of the people. Like many of your agencies, we came about in the 30s during that conservation renaissance coming out of the Depression prior to World War II. Our mission, which was given to us by the people, is to preserve, protect, perpetuate, and manage the wildlife of the state of Idaho for continued supplies for hunting, fishing, and trapping. That was the first initiative ever passed in the state of Idaho in 1938. 75 years ago. This year, in November, will be our 75th birthday as a commission-oriented agency. We actually were an agency in 1899, but we moved into a non-partisan, professionally organized agency. Little factoid that I found in the history was the green and gray uniform shirt we wear today was adopted in 1938 with that initiative. As I stated, the mission statement comes from the people, but this mission statement was further reinforced this last year in 2012 during the election, where a constitutional amendment was adopted, ensuring the people's right to hunt, fish, and trap, and further noting that this important heritage to the people of the state in Idaho was to include traditional methods and that hunting, fishing, and trapping was the preferred method for wildlife management in the state of Idaho. That constitutional amendment, coupled with the first initiative of the state with the mission statement that puts us in a leadership role of managing that public trust for them, puts Idaho as one of the handful of states that have a large portion of the population. Both of those initiatives passed with over 70% of the people of the state supporting it. Idaho conservation officers are a key part of managing this public trust. They have a multifaceted role, as most of you know. This is no surprise. That is important relative to that public trust, including not only the enforcement activities that are the prime responsibility for their management, but also the activities that involve counting, flying, diving, snorkeling, you name it. our conservation officers do it if it has anything to do with wildlife. Youth involvement, hunter education, the research activities of this agency are all part of the day-to-day work activities of our conservation officers in this state. But to me, more important, over my career, the one thing that I have seen from our conservation officers, because they're scattered, like most of you, across the landscape. They are in every town, county, and locale in the state of Idaho. They are the face of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. They represent the commission and the agency with the people across every aspect of the agency. And we count on them to be the gatekeepers for that one-on-one contact. Often, as many of you know, they may be the only local law enforcement in many of our rural communities, thus illustrating the governor's comments about often or occasionally being called upon to assist traditional law enforcement activities. I take the time to talk about this because the responsibilities that we have in the state of Idaho may be a little different than other states. Our conservation officers, to be a conservation officer in this state, requires collegiate training in fish, wildlife, or natural resources, and the successful completion of post-training, much like many of you. While I'm not a post-certified individual, therefore I am not qualified to be a conservation officer, in the state of Idaho, all department-certified staff have the responsibility for our Title 36 code, which is our Fish and Wildlife Code. We all carry the ability to enforce that under the guidance and leadership of our trained professionals. I take that very seriously as a director and as a field biologist through my career, that I had the honor and privilege to enforce and participate in enforcement activities of the laws and rules, which John mentioned, some of them were barbless hooks, that we have to enforce on a day-to-day basis out there. That teamwork approach of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, that family orientation of current and past members, and that extended family that you represent here today. We open our arms to you while you're here in Idaho. We welcome you. I know some of you have been out participating in some of the activities with the extended Fish and Game family. I encourage you to continue to do that. And certainly, I wanted to give you a sense of history of our organization and who we are and what we are as we think about some of the other pieces of this morning's program that honor our officers. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Virgil. Our third guest this morning is Commissioner Bob Borowski. He currently serves as chairman of the Idaho Fish and Game Commission. I first met Bob while we served together at the Post Council. He retired in 2005 after a 35-year law enforcement career, the last 25 where he was sheriff of Payette County. In addition to being appointed to the Post Council, he was also elected as president of the Idaho Sheriff's Association, and he also served as Fruitland City Councilman. Born and raised in Idaho, he has a love for Idaho's natural resources and enjoys spending time taking his grandkids fishing. Lately, most of his law enforcement training comes in handy every weekend while he officiates high school basketball and football. So please join me in welcoming Bob Borowski, chairman of our commission.
I hate microphones. Can you hear me back there? Huh? No, I really do. I never have anything intelligent to say, so I keep hearing my own reflection of my voice, and it bothers me more than anything. I will start getting low, but I will. I just want you to know I wore a tie. The suit jacket is sitting behind my chair. I was always taught that when you present anything to an audience, you show up with a tie. And it's too hot, so it's undone. You have my respect. I wore the tie. These are very, very rare. The first thing you really try to do is I took a look at the conference, and I think I would rather be a spouse than one of you law enforcement officers, okay? Because they're boating and they're doing a lot of fun things. You're going to be sitting in, well, we hope, a non-stuffy room as the air conditioning kicks on. But there's three things that I hope you will take away from this, and the first one being is your ability to network and create old friendships or renew old friendships and new ones. These are very, very important to you as you progress through your career. I can see a couple faces out there that maybe are in the same frame as I am, that maybe your career is beginning to end, but I see a lot of young, eager faces beginning to enter into this field. And I really want you to know that these conferences are the best way to create that networking. And as Virgil and others have alluded to, you are the governor that you work with within your community. My first experience was in 1970s, the early 70s. It was Game Warden Frank Watkins. I was a new cop. He was kind of a seasoned game warden, and we started getting a good friendship, and we created a working environment that is second to none. I went out with him on what they call the 4 Mile Creek area. Some of my officers might be aware of where that's at, because good people don't come through the highways where there's game checks. So, right? So anyway, Frank and I would set up kind of a game check, and the reason I was there is Fish and Game has the ability to search your vehicle without a warrant because you're out in the field with a weapon. I had to have a warrant. And with that working relationship that Frank and I developed, we not only caught those that were taking advantage and harvesting our natural resources illegally, but we recovered several different weapons that were stolen throughout our communities. So that turned out to be a win-win for both of us concerned. And I will never forget Frank. He retired in the early 90s, but he and I, and he's passed since, but he and I just had that friendship that will never end. And I sincerely hope that you create those kind of friendships here within these meetings or within your own communities, and I know you will. The second is the training. As John alluded to, I sat on post council for about 10 years. We established standards and trainings for all of our people, and that incorporated with the Fish and Game, our police officers, you heard Boise City, our county sheriff's deputies, and every ISP. So we have formed all of those folks together in one training in law enforcement. I am envious of BC. I met him. I had the opportunity to tour what they call the Training Institute of BC. It's a justice training entity. And on one big campus, they have everything: police, fire, ambulance, court martials, all aspects of law enforcement sitting in this training complex. And you talk about resources and networking and working together with all aspects of emergency responders, that education would be second to none. We thought we could bring that into Idaho. Well, we didn't quite make it, but we still have posted. We have the training academy, so all of our officers go. And I believe they even have a day now where the wives attend. Is that correct? Is that still going on? So they get a concept of what's going on with the officers' lives and how to deal with some of the being home, Christmas, New Year's, all the times that our officers are out working. The family is a tight-knit unit and very highly respected amongst our officers, and we want to hold that unity together within the family matters. The final thing is this afternoon, you're going to hear from Shane Mahoney, an outstanding gentleman. I heard him in August, and we always want to emphasize guest speakers. And the reason we want to bring in guest speakers is because we hope, sincerely hope, that they will either motivate you to take on a cause or get involved with certain aspects of our work. I go out and I plant every year with our volunteers. I do some other things too. But that is the most rewarding time as a commissioner that I really have. I actually get out there with people and we get mud on our shoes and we actually plant bitter brush and different grasses and sagebrush for winter habitat for our animals. It is really a great time for me. Hopefully Mr. Mahoney will motivate you. I don't know his speech, but I know I've heard him, that he will motivate you to take on a cause. And this is international. It not only deals with the Americas, but it also deals, well, worldwide. But one person, I've planted probably in the neighborhood of about 6,000 acres, not myself, but with my crew. And so one person, myself, I have made that much difference, or I perceive to make that much difference. And it makes me feel good, especially during the cold, cold winters, when I can go out and see our animals at least have something to eat versus nothing, or that we're trying to feed them to make them survive. Not good. We want them in the natural state that we could possibly put them in. So those are the three key areas that I'd really like all of you to take away from this conference this week. It's your 32nd annual conference, if I'm not mistaken. And hats off to you, because I'm glad to see that it seems to be growing stronger and better, and you're involving families and a lot of other aspects of your career into this week-long conference. So on behalf of the citizens of Idaho, the sportsmen of Idaho, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, and the Idaho Fish and Game Commission, welcome.
But I want to introduce your president. NAWEOA President Rich Kramer became a wildlife enforcement officer in 1991. He was hired on with the Pennsylvania Game Commission. His first duty station as a wildlife conservation officer was in Allegheny County, which is just outside of the Pittsburgh area, one of the more rural or urban areas. Shortly thereafter, he moved to one of the more urban or rural spots in Forest County, one of the least populated counties in Pennsylvania. Rich has held various positions with the Game Commission, including wildlife education supervisor, and currently serves as the land management officer in his native northwestern Pennsylvania. With NAWEOA, Rich has been a Region 7 Director, Vice President, and since 2011 has served as President. Please welcome NAWEOA President Rich Kramer.
Good morning. In November of 2010, we lost one of our brother officers in Pennsylvania, David Grove. And we honored him at the conference in Saskatchewan. And his family joined us there and forever became part of our family. They join us here again today. I'd like to introduce Dana, Lucy, and Jen Grove. Please. We'll now honor our fallen officers. It is with sadness and deepest sympathy that today I read to you the circumstances of the on-duty deaths of our fallen officers. Newfoundland and Labrador Fish and Wildlife Officer Howard Lavers. Wildlife Officer Howard Lavers, age 57, lost his life in the line of duty on February 21, 2013. Conservation Officer Lavers was on snowmobile patrol along with two other officers on Newfoundland's northern peninsula at Hawke's Bay. As the three officers were riding across a frozen pond, the ice gave way and they all fell through along with their snowmobiles and survival gear. The other two officers were able to make it to shore, but their efforts to rescue Howard were unsuccessful. Howard had a great passion for the outdoors, and in 1986 he became a wildlife officer and achieved his dream of getting paid for doing something he loved. In 2001, Howard received the prestigious Wildlife Officer of the Year award. His patrol area included his hometown of Port Saunders, and he was a well-known and respected member in that community and surrounding area. Howard is survived by his two sons and a daughter. Arkansas Game and Fish Commission Wildlife Officer Joel Lee Campora. In the early morning hours of May 31, 2013, Wildlife Officer Joel Lee Campora, age 32, and Scott County Sheriff Cody Carpenter lost their lives while attempting a boat rescue of two women who had become stranded in rising floodwaters. A frantic 911 call from the two residents reported their home was surrounded by water, which had begun to enter the house. With only a flashlight to guide their way, Officer Campora and Sheriff Carpenter launched a boat into the raging waters of Mill Creek and headed towards the residence. Shortly after they arrived, a deafening crash was heard, caused by the home being ripped from its foundation and imploding. All four people died. In 2003, Officer Campora began his law enforcement career as an auxiliary patrolman for the Mena, Arkansas Police Department. And then in 2004, he accepted a full-time position as a deputy with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. From the time he had been in the 4th grade, Joel had dreamed of being a game warden. And in October 2007, he realized that dream when he became a wildlife officer with the Arkansas Fish and Game Commission. As a wildlife officer, Joel had many accomplishments and was recognized for outstanding service on countless occasions. He was an integral member of both the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's dive team and the disaster response team. He also served as an instructor for defensive tactics and defensive driving. Joel's life of service did not only apply to his law enforcement duties, as he also served as a volunteer youth minister for Salem Baptist Church and Pencil Bluff First Baptist Church. Joel is survived by his wife and high school sweetheart, Rebecca, and his daughters, Daisy and Bethany. Saskatchewan Environment Conservation Officer Justin August Nackstead. Saskatchewan Conservation Officer Justin August Nackstead, age 23, died tragically in the line of duty on May 31, 2013, while assisting another law enforcement agency with traffic control at a motor vehicle accident scene. He was struck and killed when an SUV that was allegedly being driven by an impaired driver sped through the traffic control area. The driver failed to stop but was later arrested and charged with 5 counts under the Criminal Code of Canada. Officer Nackstead worked one summer doing park enforcement with Alberta Parks before he graduated from Resource and Environmental Enforcement training in the spring of 2011. In May of 2011, he was appointed a conservation officer with the Ministry of Environment and started working in Saskatchewan. Justin's skills, abilities, and outgoing personality were well respected by his coworkers and supervisors alike. He loved to hunt and fish, and his passion for the outdoors drove him to protect Saskatchewan's natural resources. It was his keen resource knowledge and experience that led him to begin work as an operator with the Special Investigations Unit in the fall of 2012. That role was to expand to full-time in the fall of 2013. Justin is survived by his parents, Howard and Lori, and his sister, Trina, and brother Dawson, who join us here today.
the monument. I never dreamed it would be me, my name for all eternity, recorded here at this hallowed place. Alas, my name, no more my face. In the line of duty, I hear them say, my family now, the price to pay. My folded flag stained with their tears. We only had those few short years. The badge no longer on my chest. I sleep now in eternal rest. My sword I pass to those behind, and pray they keep this thought in mind. I never dreamed it would be me, and with heavy heart and bended knee, I ask for all here from the past. Dear God, let my name be the last. Please stand for the playing of taps. All uniformed officers, attention. Present arms. Order. Arms. Please observe a moment of silence for these we honor today and all of our fallen officers. Please remain standing for the invocation by Idaho State Police Chaplain Eldon Isaac.
Would you join me this morning with an invocation of thanks by bowing your heads as we join together as a family this morning? Our Heavenly Father, we truly thank you for each one represented here, for these men who gave the greatest sacrifice to protect the things that are dear to their life and to their heart, to protect the things of this great North America, the resources in which we enjoy. Father, we thank them today for the supreme sacrifice. And Father, may their epitaph go further to remind us this day of the cost, the price that must be paid to have freedom in this land. And Father, this day we give thanks to them. We ask a blessing upon the family. We ask that your peace would be upon them. And Father, as they walk the path of life, that these men's lives would be a reminder of what was done and what the cost can be. We thank you this morning. May your blessing be upon this gathering and upon this family. In your name we ask it. Amen.
And they came to Idaho in the 1880s, first coming as miners and then later turning to sheep herding. Today they are an integral part of the state's social fabric, especially here in Boise. Over 50 years ago, members of the Idaho's Basque community dreamed of creating a troupe to preserve and perform the unique dances of their ancient history. Since 1960, the dancers have performed throughout North America and even traveled back to their old country, where they have performed in all 7 Basque provinces. Locally, the group performs dozens of times each year for charities, hospitals, and festivals. NAWEOA Cadre, which means one who does with his feet, is Euskera, the Basque language, are not professional performers, but they are part of our local community. They share their culture, and they perform with flying feet, snapping fingers, and a thrilling combination of precision and enthusiasm. Through dance, the Oankari Basque dancers of Boise share their culture with the local and global community while continuing to preserve their unique heritage for future generations. Please welcome the Oankari Basque dancers.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And with the Oinkaris today will begin the performance with Agura. Agura is a dance of respect and welcoming to you from us, and so Agura danza. The Jota is a very important dance within the Basque community, and here in Boise we celebrate one of our big festivals of the year is just in a few weeks at the end of July, and we have a dance just right across the street on the Basque block that you may have noticed. But we close off the street and we have dancing going on there throughout the day and into the evening, and on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of that weekend. And one of the dances that you see a lot is this social dance called the Jota and the Porosalda. Thank you, everyone. The Oinkaris have the Basque community is very, very strong throughout many parts of Idaho, especially southern Idaho, southwestern Idaho, and eastern Oregon, northern Nevada, and stuff. And the Oinkari, this particular group, was formed in 1960, when a small group, about 8 young adults, went to the Basque Country in northern Spain, and really kind of went as much on vacation as anything else, but went together. They met a dance group in the town of San Sebastian, or Donosti, and kind of palled around with them. And these young people had danced as young people, but not really as adults or as young adults. And they became friends with them, and that group asked them to come back, and in their honor to start a dancing group for adults, and to name that Oinkari, which was the name of the group that was there in the Basque Country. That group in the Basque Country is no longer, but the Oinkaris here in Boise are still going, celebrating about 52 years now. And this is one of the dances that very first group choreographed with the original Oinkari dancers. It's called Arku Danza, or the hoop dance. Thank you. Thank you very much for having us, and I hope you have a great convention here. Thank you.
So welcome to the 32nd Annual Conference of the North American Wildlife Enforcement Officers Association. It is with great pleasure that I officially open the conference proceeding. I want to thank the Idaho Conservation Officers for their willingness to host this event and for all the hard work that goes into planning a conference. I would also like to recognize the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, which under the leadership of Director Virgil Moore has been very involved in supporting this conference. We're in store for a great week of activities for a family and training for the officers, and I encourage you to make the most of your time at the conference and in the Gem State. welcome to Idaho.
I'd like to recognize in our audience today all veterans of the U.S. and Canadian Armed Forces. If you please stand and be recognized. Alaska, Alberta, Arizona, Arkansas, British Columbia, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Environment Canada, Wildlife Enforcement Division, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Federal Indian Tribes, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Manitoba, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, National Capital Commission, National Marine Fisheries, U.S. Park Service, Parks Canada Warden Service, Nebraska, Nevada, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Labrador, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia, Nunavut, Ohio, Oklahoma, Ontario, Oregon, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, Pennsylvania Game Commission, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, Rhode Island, Saskatchewan, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Military Fish and Wildlife, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming, Yukon.
Any non-North American agencies out there? And how about our retired officers? Most especially our spouses and families. Did I forget anybody this year? South Dakota got you this time.
We had excellent submissions, and it took a while to review all the material, but this year was a definite clear winner, and it is my extreme honor and pleasure to announce this year's NAWEOA Officer of the Year, Corporal Walter May from Maryland. I'd ask that Corporal May's wife, Diane, come up and join him on the stage as well. I had the pleasure of chatting briefly with Walter in the hospitality room the other night, and we discussed how this presentation was going to go. And I know he's going to hate this part, but we're going to read part of his nomination. And he's going to have to grin and bear through it with us. But I've pared it down because it was a lengthy submission, and he is obviously a very worthy candidate of this award. I am pleased to present Corporal Walter May with the NAWEOA Officer of the Year Award. Corporal May has been employed with the Natural Resources Police since 1980, and his job performance throughout 2012 qualifies him for this prestigious award. May consistently produces quality cases developed through his hard work, ethic, and wealth of knowledge and skills that he has obtained as a seasoned Maryland Natural Resource Police officer. May consistently achieves high results and exceeds normal standards for enforcement actions using a positive attitude and diverse working knowledge. In 2012, Corporal May documented 1,006 violations in the form of 297 citations and 709 warnings. You better have your stuff together when Corporal May's working. Corporal May is the lead diver of the agency's underwater operations unit, as well as being trained in high-angle rescue missions, and was the lead for a recovery of a fall victim in the Allegheny County area. Corporal May rappelled the cliffside approximately 180 feet and used a rescue basket to recover the body. May also participates as a member of the local emergency hazmat, collapse, and water rescue team. Corporal May is an instructor at the NRP Academy, instructing preliminary breath test and first aid, as well as instructing for his in-house fellow officers. Corporal May is dependable and can be counted on upon to be available whenever needed during any event. Corporal May places organizational interests ahead of his personal convenience and displays a genuine interest in the department and its goals. Corporal May displays a high level of integrity and honesty in every aspect of his life, both personal and professional, and continues to be a role model for younger officers who regularly seek him out for guidance and advice. Please join me in honoring Corporal Walter May as the 2013 NAWEOA Officer of the Year. Along with the certificate, we have this plaque for Corporal May.
Real quick, I hate this. I really, this is better than any award I've ever got because I feel it comes from the officers, the field workers. But let me tell you something really quick. I couldn't do this without my spouse. You are all spouses, your families. She says, be careful as I leave, and I hate that. It's bad luck to me, but she says it. I've arrested my kids, teachers, husbands. I'm on a board at a credit union. I arrested our auditor. And the next day, the bank president asked me, can you two work together? We talked, and I said, yeah, but I'll arrest him again. The people beat on my door when I'm not there, and you all have dealt with them. They're not the nicest people in the world at times. 99% of the people we deal with are great, and my wife handles that. Diane has put up with it. She's raised 3 kids as a single mom, and her oldest one, which is me, is the hardest to control. I fell through the ice this winter. The other day I come home, and I said, hey, are you doing worse today? As I'm leaving this trail of mud into the house. And she says, why? And I'd fell in the river. Well, going to the river, didn't quite make the river. And where I'm at right this year, it is wet. And I was mud from my boots to the back of my head. I mean, the whole body, I was just coated. And she's the one that takes care of me. At this time, I'd really like you all to take a second, and let's give a round of applause to our spouses, our families, mothers, dads. We couldn't do this without you because we work weekends, we work nights, and we don't come home when we say we will. So let's give them a round of applause. And I'm a politically incorrect officer. The other 2 officers from Maryland here, one's really politically incorrect, but they were really the hardest workers you ever saw. I just can't say enough about them, but I will arrest anybody that does something wrong, and I do give warnings. I do give verbal warnings. Don't think I'm the worst in the world. If you want to hear about it sometime, this year I did arrest Santa Claus. And in international relations, I'm the only officer that ever had to write the French ambassador an apology letter. So you can hear them if you see me around someplace, but I want to thank you guys, because I tell you what, this is from, to me, you all that are who the workers in this country. And it's like the governor says, we work weekends, nights, and we take it from our family, and I've got a great wife. Thank you.
This concludes our opening ceremonies. I have a few announcements, but first, I just want to take an opportunity, since we are ahead of schedule, to thank some folks. First of all, I want to thank Dan Kelsey for putting together an awesome opening ceremony this morning. He had it down to the minute, and now we are ahead of schedule. I want to thank him, but I also thought I'd just recognize the steering committee. for NAWEOA, Lou Huddleston, Marshall Haynes, Tom Whalen, and myself. We had a dream about 4 years ago, and Tricia. And Tricia's her dreams turned into a nightmare this morning, but she is doing well. So on behalf of the 5 of us, we just, once again, welcome you. It helps if I have my glasses on, and I'll keep my comments shorter. But there are a few housekeeping things. I have been reminded to tell you that today is Uniform Day, and I've been asked that we all stay in uniform throughout the day, except the fun run later on. We'll let you take those off. So Washington, Joshua, you and your buddies from Washington, go back to your room. There's plenty of time this morning to get back in uniform. I have a direct line to Bruce. For those going on the zip tour, the size of the group is pretty big, so we're asking that due to the size, we're to change our time to keep both groups closer together. They are now departing the hotel lobby at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll also be aware that the weight restrictions are a minimum of 80 pounds and a maximum of 250 pounds. If this is an issue for anyone planning the zip line, please get a hold of Scott Eastman, and he'll help you out. I'm sure he can find some way, but I don't know if you're going to lose more weight by tomorrow morning. But he said he'd help you out. Be sure to wear closed-toed shoes and drink lots of water. For those involved in the Hales Canyon jet ride trip tomorrow, we are changing the time of departure. You're departing the hotel lobby at 6:45 a.m. I said tomorrow. And then the significant other rafting of the South Fork, that will be departing the hotel lobby at noon tomorrow, which is Thursday. Today, at Wednesday, there's 2 float trips going on, the Boise Parks and Rec Boise River Float and the Boise State University Payette River Float. They will both be departing the Grove Hotel lobby at 11:30. And the only other announcement I have is this afternoon at 5 o'clock we have the fun run. And it's deja vu if you were in Arizona last year. Anyone can go out and run 5K, and for those south of the border, that's 3.101 miles. Anyone can run that when the temperature is in double digits, but we expect more from you folks. And that's why it's going to be 103. So. And as an added challenge, lightning caused a little bit of fire north of here, and so we had a little bit of smoke in the air, but I checked the air quality, and it should be okay for us to go. But if you do have sensitivities, be aware that there is a little bit of forest fire smoke in the air. To get there, we are going to be at the Julia Davis Band Park on the Green Belt. So from the water fountain out front, you will go south until you get to the river. Don't go in the river, but go left, and you will walk about 3 or 4 blocks, and you'll go underneath the Capitol and 10th Street, 8th Street. And you won't miss us, and that's where the fun run both starts and finishes, and that's where the barbecue will take place right afterwards. It's about a 15-minute walk. Is our goal that we will be done this afternoon at 4 o'clock, so you'll have time to change back out of your uniforms, Joshua, get back into your running shoes, and about a 15-20-minute walk. It's a good warm-up for the fun run at 5 o'clock. Also this afternoon, there's a Live After 5 going on. I also want to just remind everyone to take a look at our vendors. They've come from far and near. We did pretty good to get a lot of vendors. So stop by their booth, show your support for their support. At 11:30, we will start serving lunch. The officers will be right next door. And then the significant other lunches, that those who signed up for the significant other lunch will be meeting in the Glen. Again, we'll be meeting and starting lunch at 11:30. There's about an hour and a half. We'll have some, in addition to food, you will have a presentation from our key sponsor, and also some more NAWEOA awards will be presented. And then at 1 o'clock, we will be meeting right back here at 1 o'clock for Shane Mahoney. When Shane is finished, we will have a small break, and then we're going to meet in the summit room for Randy's presentation afterwards. And there'll be a small break for refreshments and stuff in between the two. So I look forward to seeing you all in uniform at lunch, and you're dismissed.